Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we'll discuss on authorship disputes, or you can say authorship conflict. And this is a guide for new researcher, and this is basically to how you are going to handle such authorship dispute. And this has been reported by Tim Albert and Elizabeth Weger, and the report is available at COAF, that is Committee on Publication Ethics, and it has been published in the year of 2003. One of the main tasks when we try to understand about the COAF Education Committee, that is to reduce the unethical behavior, and that involve rather bold step of defining when people has been behaving unethically, and been kind of providing suggestions on how they can avoid doing so in the future. So let's start. So this International Committee on Medical Journal Editor, which is ICMJE, that is also known as the Vancouver Group, and in their latest report regarding authorship credit, what they have defined is they have given three conditions. The first one is substantial contribution to conception and design or acquisition of data, and then analysis and interpretation of the data, then drafting the article or revising it critically for important intellectual content, then final approval of the version that to be published. If all these three conditions being met by all the author, then you can say the authorship credit can be given to them. Just acquisition of funding, collection of data, general supervision of that particular research group, that won't allow you to be have the authorship credit. So that need to be taken into consideration. If we need to follow certain guideline, when many of the cases when a student or researcher, they think of where to like visit and what sort of guideline to see, so they can take this as note or guideline, or kind of set of regulation, and then they can appeal if they are not getting any sort of let's say solution to a particular problem. So how to reduce the incidence of authorship problem? There are like people, when generally we talk about, they lie about the authorship in basically two way. That is, one thing is the gift authorship, which we'll be discussing in further. Another one is the ghost authorship, if they are doing so, like gifting authorship or keeping people away by like ghost authorship. So what are these? Also we'll try to understand. But preventing a problem is often a kind of better than solving it. And we, as this committee, this COAF, they recommend the following three principles. That the first one is encourage a culture of ethical authorship. So that where one problem, that people who are being unethical about the authorship are simply following local customs and practices, and they need to made aware of views of editor, so that in time the culture will change. They have to adopt, and based on the need they has to behave. So as a junior researcher, if you are looking into sort of guideline, then you can visit to your library. If there is there must be the nowadays it is recommended in India also, with 2018 the guideline issued by UGC on this academic integrity. Now this publication ethics or research and publication ethics is one of the mandatory coursework for the PhD scholar, and moreover that is kind of optional or credit course for even for the faculty and for the you can say UG and PG student as well. So that depends, and for that now on publication ethics there has to be few books which need to be available at the library. If not, they can request their university or their institute to have it, so that they can follow this this guideline or policy related to authorship. And the second category, when we're talking about the principle, then it being recommended to start discussing authorship when you plan your research. Before planning your research, you have to have a clear cut idea. Face to face meeting need to be held, so that you should avoid such incidences or circumstances later on. So that is there. Who will be at the first place, who to become, who is going to communicate the paper, who will be the second author, all sort of thing that need to be jotted down before sending that paper to a journal. Again, decide authorship before you start each article. So many authorship difficulties arise because of misplaced expectation and poor communication, which just now I was talking about. And so it is important that before you start to write up your project, or let's say whatever experiment that you have thought of doing, you confirm in writing who will be doing what and when that written document, if you will be having that, will help you to refer sort of conflict or problem, if so occur in future. So that is one thing. Then let's come to how to handle authorship dispute when they occur. So if that dispute has been there and it has occurred, then how you are going to handle that one. So the earlier the session, that every team should have written authorship agreement before the article is written, so that you can reduce the chances of dispute arising at a later stage. If not, when even when effectively at the real work has been done. So that is there. Then however, many people, they are reluctant to do or to follow those sort of thing, like why to sit and discuss and write all sort of thing. We can see once the paper is communicated, or let's say if that gets rejected, there are chances of revision. That time we can decide, no, better you should have clear cut let's say agreement, or let's say written document with you, so that will basically avoid this sort of problem later on, once the paper has been published. Once it is published, and then this sort of dispute that arises, to handle those dispute, it is kind of you can say headache or a problem for even for all, even for the publisher as well as for the author. So that to be avoided. And the disagreement about authorship can be classified into two types, and those that do not contravene with ICMJE guideline, that is, one is dispute. Those with those that do, they can say the misconduct, that we will discuss. What is dispute? So these are largely question on the interpretation, such as whether somebody contribution was substantial or not. And in such cases, you need to negotiate with the people that those are involved. And if the suggestion is to include or omit name came after from your supervisor, and make clear that you are not disputing his or her right to make such a decision, but so kind of dispassionately why you are not agree with the decision of your supervisor, and support this with evidence, and try to make him understand or make her understand that you need to follow the statement that is there with ICMJE, or you can refer to this website with this instruction, and try to make him understand that if that being published at a later stage, the dispute might arise, then there will be so and so consequences. And the instruction, if you remain unhappy, even your supervisor is not agreed with your decision, you may consider an appeal to someone more senior, such as the departmental head or the dean, or if there is dean research. But or you should do this in the exceptional circumstances only, because you should not be take chances to make kind of a collision with your supervisor, that because you need to carry on your work. So make sure that the supervisor knows what you are intending to do. And there is again the another term that is the misconduct. If you believe that someone is kind of proposing to do something with the authorship list and that is unethical, whether that can be a supervisor or let's say the other team member of your or research group, so should you say nothing, or what sort of thing that you'll do, or you should both you whistle, or you are ready to be a whistleblower, even though that might damage your career prospect or future funding, if you are choosing the other one, that is the blowing the whistle. So basically this committee or this guideline, if you refer here, they recommend a third way, which is to explain the fact that the suggested author list kind of it is contravening the editor recommendation and could be considered scientific misconduct. Again, stick to the fact and avoid being emotional. Point out that an editor could well decline to publish if he or she finds out at a later stage or during the process of review. As soon as the meeting is finished, make a note and file it, like whatever fact or thing that being discussed, so that you can refer that at a later stage also. Then again, let's discuss the key concepts in authorship. One is the one thing that many of you might be knowing also, is to acknowledge people. Most journal they allow or they permit acknowledgement of contribution to the research project that do not merit authorship. And the ICMJE guidelines state that all other who contributed to the work who are not author should be named in the acknowledgement, so that you can take a note, and what they did should be described. All those who are listed in this way should be aware of it. And some journal, mainly in US, will require signature of the people that are involved or that you have associated in the acknowledgement. Then appeals, so you may ask the journal to withdraw your name while you go for appeal from a particular paper, and if it has been included against your wishes, or let's say by mistake you have done it, somebody has done it, or the scholar has not informed the supervisor and has simply included his or her name and submitted to the journal. And however, most editor are reluctant to get involved in a dispute about a kind of omitted author, since they do not have enough information to judge these cases. And whereas some journal have an kind of way out, but they have deal with the cases that are alleged with misconduct by the journal. Similarly, COPE only hears cases submitted by journal editor. Again, this COPE that we are talking about is platform where the cases submitted by journal editor can be heard, and it is not an appeal body for cases of disputed authorship. So disputed authorship, whom you should be appealing, that is again to the journal editor. You can write wherever you have published, if if there is some dispute, after all sort of like meeting and sort you are not again okay with it and you go for appeal, then you can write to the editor-in-chief or the associate editor, those are involved, so they will take the case forward and they will set a committee, and then again it will be proceeded. Then contributorship. So again, what is contributorship? So the ICMJ guideline now recommend that authors should state their contribution. Many of the cases you might be seeing that journal, they ask you, if there are 5 author, so they will ask you like the first author, second author, third author, and fourth and fifth, who has done the writing part, who has done this like analysis of the let that work or software, then funding, then there are like sort of validation, evaluation, all sort of thing. So those need to be reported. So few journal, like some journal, they publish this information, but in most cases it is for the benefit of the editor who wants to reassure that the criteria have been fulfilled. It is kind of a criteria. In many cases you do not need to also give those information, where you might have seen that all the author have equally contributed to that work. So that also you might have seen in few of the journal. So that means each author are equally responsible or has been contributed to that work. Then again, as you can see, who is corresponding author. So the person who received the reviewer comments, the proof, and those contact details are printed on the article, so that the reader can request reprints or contact the research group via this corresponding author. Journal editor view this as a purely, when we are talking about journal editor, view this as a purely administrative role, but some author equate it with seniority. So that is again that is up to you to take a decision, even that varies geographically. If we talk about this continent or in a different country, they take it in a different way. So you see what credit or sort of balance you need to do, or what weightage that corresponding author is having at your place. So, and basically you have to, again, all the author, whomever are involved, they need to decide who will be the corresponding author. Or normally you can take view from the co-author. That has to be at the early stage, and again decide in advance, so that there should not be any kind of dispute later state. Ideally choose someone whose contact details are not likely to change in the near future, and you can think of a senior member from the research group also. That is up to you. Then first and last author also. Generally speaking, the most sought after position is the first one, because in many cases you can see if he is the first one, so when it will be reported, like at any place, or it will be cited, in many cases, like it can be shown Kosal Kumar ETAL. So in that way you can see here also. So that is where you can see like the weightage of the first author. So normally the first author name is thereafter generally held to have highest contribution to the research. And if country wise also, they in different country also they give that weightage. Even they distribute the weightage of that, even 60%, 70% of weightage to the first author. Sometimes kind of significance is attached to being the last author also. However, views about that particular position, that might vary, and so do not assume that everybody feels the same way about it. And authors have often given the last place to the senior team member who contributed kind of expertise or guidance to that particular research group or research work. And this can be consistent with the ICMJE criteria if this person was involved in study design, the interpretation of the data, and critically reviewed the publication. However, you can kind of whom to be given, like guest author or honorary author, if in that way you are thinking, that to be avoided. Then we've been discussing that ghost author and gift author. So what is ghost author? So when we talk about ghost author, this is kind of phrase that being used in two ways. That is usually referred to the professional writer, often paid by the commercial sponsor. This I have discussed in one of my earlier video. If you refer to the Turnitin playlist, where you can find about this, like we have measured the this kind of misconduct, or you can say what to be avoided. Like this is one of the thing, ghost author. And there also I have highlighted about this, whose role here is not kind of acknowledged in, because you have paid someone to do your work. Although such writers rarely meet ICMJ criteria, since they are not involved in the design of the studies or the collection or interpretation of the data, it is important to acknowledge their contribution, since their involvement may represent a potential conflict of interest. The term can also be used to describe people who made a significant contribution to the research project. So this is the another part. So this is the second part that we are talking about. This is the first one. And even when they were talking about the significant contribution to a research project and fulfill all ICMJ criteria but not listed in the author safe list. So this ICMJ criteria clearly condemn this practice and state that all person designated as author should qualify for authorship, and all those who meet those criteria, that they need to give them authorship credit. Again, gift authors, so people who are listed as kind of author but who did not take a significant contribution to the research and therefore do not fulfill the ICMJ criteria. These are often senior figures, like head of the department, or let's say whomever you can think of, whose name are added to the curry flavor, and because of it, it is kind of expected. And another type of gift author is like colleague whose name is added on the understanding that he or she will do the same for you. Like you want to increase your publication count, in that way also people they do it, but that is again listed as gift author, which again to be avoided. These are unethical, or you can say misconduct, publication misconduct wise it can be considered. Group authorship, like what is group authorship? I mean, I do not know. There are few cases you might have seen in few of the journal. They permit the use of group name, like let's say XYZ group, and they will not write the author name there. They will simply write the group name, because once somebody google it, or they will find out that particular group, they will come to know these are the author or the person or the member of that particular group. So those are the contributor to that particular paper. And few of the journal they may not allow. That depends, that you have to see when if you are working in a group, they are allowing it or not, or else you can put all the author also. That also we have seen. One problem with the group name is that they are often miscoded on the databases such as Medline, so that you have to take care of, because many of the cases you need to have your individual let's say the database that being created, or let's say the Scoopus or the Web of Science or the Publians, wherever the profile is there. So there you have to look into whether those article is being listed against your name or not. So that is there. Should we expect a radiographer to explain the statistical method, or a statistician to interpret the X-rays? So to take increasing specialization into account, the latest version of ICMJ guideline acknowledges that it may be unreasonable to ask individual to take responsibility for each aspect of the research. However, the editor felt that it was important that one person should guarantee the integrity of the entire project. Let's say you have 5 author, one the corresponding, or that is up to you. up to the author to decide whom to keep as a guarantor. That can be the same corresponding author or the first author who will take kind of guarantee about the integrity of the entire project. All person designated as authors should qualify for the authorship, and all those who qualify should be listed, and each author should have participated sufficiently in the work which we have already discussed, and one or more authors should take responsibility to the integrity of the work. As we have discussed, any one of the group can take that role into his or her account and to be a guarantor. If that being asked by the journal or the publisher that you have to mention the guarantor, then that is up to that the author to decide and to submit the name. Then instruction to the author, that also while there is a great deal of agreement among journal editor on the authorship matter, there are also some differences in detailed requirement and the way in which bylines are presented. So you may carefully read the instruction to the author for your targeted journal, so that you have to refer all the guideline you have to see, and then you have to decide, and with your team member, and you have to further take a action on that. Then number of author, there is no such rule when we talk about number of author. In the past, databases such as Medline limited the number of author they have listed. This was shown to influence the number of author. Most groups tried to stay below the limit, like we have discussed the group author, and in large group probably increase by the number, and now however most databases they list all author. Rather than decide how many authors there should be, it is probably best to agree who will qualify as an author, and then simply include all those who do. So however, remember that including large number of authors usually increase the time it takes to prepare, review, finalize the paper, and if they meet all the criteria which we have discussed about the authorship credit, then you should include all the author name. Then the order of the author, this we have been discussing about the first author, last author, and the corresponding authors. So the ICMJ guidelines state that the order of the authorship should be a joint decision of the co-author. Authors should be prepared to explain the order in which the author are listed. They rather unhappily do not give guideline about order in which author are listed. However, or wherever possible, make this a decision before starting to write up the project. Some group list author alphabetically, sometimes with a note to explain that all the author, which I was talking about, all the author have made equal contribution to the study and the publication. That means all are equally contributed or participated in that work. If you do so, that makes sure it is clear to the editor. So thank you for watching this particular video. Please do like, share and comment on this particular video, and if you have not yet subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned. I'll be coming more with research and publication ethics, more video on it, and again I will come up with the journal that you need to target, or let's say discipline wise also I'll prepare journal where you can think of submitting your work. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching.